Welcome to Turn the Page, the official podcast of the Syosset Public Library.
Hi, this is Jessica with Syosset Library's Turn the Page podcast, and today our guest is
Becky Clark.
Becky. Welcome to Turn the Page. So you're going to talk to us today about your cozy mystery series.
Yes, I am. I have a new cozy series out set in the world of crossword puzzles.
Which is amazing.
Yeah, there's not that many of them, and so that was kind of an interesting way to go with those. I think I am wearing my crossword puzzle scarf today, which you can't see. I don't know what people are called who listen to podcasts. Are they pod people?
We can call them pod people. But if they want to complain, they can tell me. Like, we're not pod people.
Well, they I can describe the scarf for you. It's a chiffon infinity scarf, which means it's a big long loop, and it's obviously diamond encrusted, and there are rubies and emeralds throughout it.
Yeah, I have to actually put on glasses, like sunglasses, because even through the screen, it's so bright that it's blinding me. It's very shiny.
It is worth a fortune, and
So this is not your first cozy series.
Correct.
So your former series was a different theme. That was let's see, I'm looking here. Fiction can be murder, foul play on words. So there was still some wordy.
Well, that's called the Mystery Writers series, and I have a new one. I have a third one coming out, maybe in December, maybe not till January. But the protagonist in that is a mystery writer. So that's a ton of fun to write, because everybody I know is in that book in those books somehow.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun, and I like that it seems very meta. It's very
research. Yeah. I didn't have to do a lot of research for that.
But it's still a lot of fun, and I'm seeing just a lot of that in literature, which is super cool. Because I like it when authors clearly enjoy what they do and sort of break the fourth wall in a clever way to reach out to the people who are reading. So, but let's talk about this new series. So this series is the first book is Puzzling Inc.
Correct.
And
we already have the titles for the next ones too. The next one is Punning with Scissors.
Ooh, I love it. Puns are my favorite things ever.
And the third one will be Fatal Solutions.
Ooh, very nice.
Yeah. So the first one is Puzzling Inc. The protagonist in that is named Quinn Carr. She is she's gotten kicked on her butt by diagnosis of OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, and that has kind of shaken up her life in a pretty drastic way, and has boomeranged her back to her childhood home in this small town. And she gets this job in a diner. She's a waitress in a diner, and on the side, ever since high school, she has been making crossword puzzles for their local newspaper. And so she gets flung back to the diner, and on her watch one night, some guy ends up dead in his biscuits and gravy. And of course, the chief of police has this thing about not wanting there to be any crime in their little town. So he likes to sweep all the crime under the rug and pretend it doesn't exist. So Quinn knows that that's not cool. And so she is able to plant subliminal clues in her crossword puzzles, because the chief of police loves the crossword, and to get him to kind of see things her way, to steer the investigation in a different direction. So that's how the puzzles come into play.
So what kind of research did you have to do to create Quinn and what she did? Are you a crossword puzzle fan yourself?
I've done crossword puzzles for as long as I can remember, and but I did have to teach myself how to construct crossword puzzles, which is much more difficult than solving them. So that's kind of been an ongoing process. I'm not nearly great at it, but the beauty of putting them in a book like this is that I can kind of make up my own rules. I mean, there's rules about crossword puzzles, creating and solving them, but I can break those rules because I just explain why in the book. So, yeah, the thing about the puzzles too is that if you don't do crossword puzzles, it doesn't matter. It's still just a murder mystery. The puzzles just add an extra layer if you do like the puzzles. And they're in the book and they're in the ebook, but they're hard to do it that way. So they're on my website. You can download not only the puzzle, but the answers too, in case you get stuck. So so you can do the puzzles, but you don't have to do the puzzles. So
that's pretty cool. I like that there's, those extras. And I like that about cozies, that there's, like, it's almost like when you get a book, it's like a kit. You're reading your book, you're reading your mystery, but then, sometimes there's like a recipe that goes along with it, or just a little something else. So it's really just like your entertainment plus in a fun little package.
Yeah, well, in this series too, I kind of made a mistake for myself, because as a joke, Quinn's mom her name's Georgianne. She loves to cook, and she makes all these crazy recipes. They're all edible, of course, but they're all crazy. Like, she'll put a layer of marshmallow fluff in her lasagna, just because she's experimenting. And
sweet and salty.
So as a joke, when I turned in Puzzling Inc. to my editor, I just added a couple of the funny recipes that I had mentioned, just as a joke. And she thought it was so hilarious that she kept them in there. And so she wants to see these crazy recipes in every book. So not only do I have to come up with this edible yet weird thing to eat, I have to make the recipe for it.
Oh man, that's a lot of pressure.
It is. It's terrible. It's terrible. And the puzzles, and write the book. I mean, writing the book is the easy part of all this.
I love that your main character, that Quinn, is a boomerang child, and that also that she's dealing with something very real, like OCD. It's very real. So there's a lot in this package. Just kind of put together. I guess my question is, why did you decide to make her, I guess, a boomerang child, aside from the fact that I feel like it's so relatable?
Yeah. Well, she was on her own, she's in her 30s, and she, I don't want to tell you, I don't want to spoil anything, but when she boomeranged back home, it was because she hit rock bottom. I mean, she had nowhere to go but mom and dad. And so she just needed a safe place to land, to regroup. And I think that we all want that. I think that we all like to think that if we need it, there's a soft landing place someplace with someone. And plus, it's kind of a trope in a cozy series, especially that, she needs these people around her. Whoever your main character is needs these quirky, fun people around you who love her, and home was that place for her.
So let's talk just a little bit about you in general. So first of all, do you read other cozies? Or do you find that it sort of influences you too much with your own writing?
I kind of go both ways. I do read a lot of cozies because all of my friends write mysteries.
That sounds like a title of a book in general. All of my friends write mysteries.
Yeah, and it's absolutely true. I've been doing this. I started out writing for kids, and my first book was published in 2001. It was historical fiction for middle readers, and so I've been in this business for a long time. Everybody pretty much that I know now anymore, because my kids are all gone, so I don't have, I'm not friends with their parents, of their friends and stuff like that. So all of my friends are writers of some kind, and mostly now, because I've been in the mystery biz for so long, they write mysteries as well. So I read all kinds of mysteries. But I love the cozies because they're cozy. I like funny books mostly. I read thrillers and suspense and all of that kind of stuff. But I like the funny books, and cozies tend to run the gamut from, not particularly funny, light, but not particularly funny, all the way to the wacky, over the top kind of humor. And I kind of fall somewhere in between, I think. But that's what I like to read. And so it's naturally, I think, what I'm good at writing. I don't think I could ever write a romance because I've never read a romance, and that's that's the thing that you have to do as a writer, is be a reader in your genre broadly and deeply. And so that's what I try and do. That said, it's very complicated when you are writing something and you're reading something at the same time, and it's scary to think that you're going to take on somebody else's voice if you're reading a particularly strong book with a really strong character. So you do have to kind of watch what you're doing. Now, my crossword mysteries and my mystery writer mysteries, there's nothing really like it. There's a lot of, say, I don't know, cupcake mysteries or something like that. So if I was writing one of those, I would never read one in a similar subgenre, but I'm kind of out there on my own with these two. So I don't worry too much about that, but it is something I keep in the back of my mind. What shall I read if I'm writing this,
Of course, yeah, and that was one of the things I think that just jumped out at me, that when I was looking at the description of Puzzling Inc., that it just seemed so different, and that's not a knock to ones that are to writers that do things with cupcakes, for instance, or cats. I love both of those things. In fact, cat cupcakes would be a problem for me because they'd be too cute to eat, but they'd also look delicious.
Well, that's the thing with those bakery mysteries. The reason there's so many is because they're really popular. Readers just can't get enough of them. So the crossword thing came up because my agent wanted me to, I was already writing the mystery writers, and my agent wanted me to add in another series so that I'd always have this constant churn of books coming out. And I like doing the crosswords, and I thought that would be a fun thing to do. I don't see many of those. You always look for an unusual hook for a series, and I thought that was it. And then I started thinking about who would my protagonist be? Who would be my sleuth? And I thought, somebody with organizational OCD would really be drawn to creating crossword puzzles. All those straight columns and those black and white boxes, and it made a lot of sense that that's who would populate this book.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're saying it, it's falling into place for me. And I'm thinking about crossword puzzles in general and just how complicated they must be to sort of put together. It's almost like an equation. Yeah. So that's so what is Quinn's sort of relationship with this chief of police that doesn't want to acknowledge that maybe there's other stuff going on in the town?
Well, the chief of police doesn't like Quinn, and hasn't since she was a girl, and she
Okay.
doesn't know why, and she keeps asking everybody why, and nobody knows, and or nobody will tell her. And I will tell you that in the third book, we might find out why. Um, the second in command at the police department is Rico Lopez, and Rico and Quinn grew up together in this small town, and they were best friends, and still are. But Quinn went away, and Rico stayed. Now he's second in command. Rico's albatross is that he can't tell a lie, which is hilarious to me, to have a police officer who can't. I mean, he can't even fib. He can't even answer a question. Do these jeans make me look fat? He would always tell the truth. He's like a toddler that way, and he just does not understand about fibbing, white lies being maybe a good thing sometimes. So Quinn's trying to teach him that. But so she does have an in the police department with Rico. But the chief, what he says goes. And that's why she has the brainstorm to subliminally get him to do these things via the crossword puzzle. And she's just so excited and absolutely thrilled that it works. And so that becomes something that, that becomes her thing with him. Nobody knows that she makes these puzzles though, because if he knew, and she never told Rico that she makes these puzzles, because he would tell everybody.
Oh, of course, yeah. He wouldn't be able to help himself. He'd probably see the chief doing a puzzle and be like, "Oh, did you know?"
Yeah. So she was, like I said, she started doing these puzzles creating these puzzles in high school, and she was already, how you feel in high school, you're already nerdy enough, you don't need to add nerdness on top of nerdness. So she kept that a secret. It's only her parents and the editor at the paper know. So she's able to do this, but it's all a secret. The whole crossword puzzle thing is not known by anybody, because if the chief knew that even though he loves doing the crossword puzzles, if he knew that she made them, he would never do another one as long as that's how much he hates her.
Wow. So I'm reading your bio. So first of all, it says you love fried chicken, chocolate cake, and Chinese food. I knew I liked you for a reason. All of those things are amazing.
Yes, absolutely.
And it says you love Broadway, not a fan of opera. You are an expert on exactly one topic, yourself.
Yep. I can talk about myself all the time.
Tell us one expert Becky Clark fact.
Well, let's see. I do the crossword puzzle in ink.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty fancy.
Yeah, seriously. Wow. I'd be too afraid to
Not
do
the
that.
Sunday one.
Okay.
Not the Sunday one.
What do you have a favorite movie?
I like all kinds of movies. I tend to read pretty not narrowly exactly, but in the mystery and the suspense and the thriller genre. But I love all kinds of movies. Documentaries and the funny ones and the rom-coms and the scary ones. My husband's not big on the scary ones, so we don't typically do that.
Neither is mine.
Which is fine with me. I like the suspenseful stuff, but those jump scares, ooh, those bug me.
Yeah, I prefer more of the stuff that, is not like, it's not exposition,
Yeah.
it's sort of like it gets you and, it makes you think. That's but yeah, I'm usually the one person watching that when my kids are sleeping and my husband is not partaking with me.
Yeah. Usually my husband and I were very simpatico about what we like to watch and what we don't like to watch. And so it always feels like we'll start watching a movie, and if he picks up a book or something, half an hour in, it kind of hurts my feelings that he doesn't like what I like, which is so hilarious to me.
So how did you make the jump from children's to adults?
Well, children's books, with kids' books, there's all those gatekeepers. And I would go and talk to kids all the time, school visits and stuff like that. But they don't carry wallets.
Yes, that is true.
And
Yeah.
I kind of like the making money part of the writing biz. So it was kind of exhausting, and it got to it. I kind of I was in the sweet spot of doing school visits, and they would let anybody in, and they would pay you to come and do the school visit and stuff. And then budgets started getting tighter, and time, all those testing days and stuff. So there wasn't enough time for these kinds of what they considered frivolous kind of visits from authors. So those kind of were fewer and far between, and it was just harder to reach the kids. So I wrote some, like I said, the first book was historical fiction set during the Civil War. And then I transitioned to some funny time travel mystery romp kind of things for younger kids. And that kind of led into mysteries in general. And I thought, I was writing one. I thought it was going to be a YA mystery. And I thought, this doesn't have to be for kids at all. This is an adult, it can be for adults. So I kind of automatically transitioned, I guess, because it was easier and more lucrative, maybe.
Yeah, it's
I liked being around the kids and writing for kids, because I'm kind of, I joke that I'm a 14-year-old boy most of the time anyway, and so I kind of I kind of fall into that demographic naturally. I mean, there's no fart joke that doesn't make me laugh. So I get kids, and I had 3 kids, and I was raised in a big family, and so I get all that. That's all silliness to me, and it's just fun. But if you can do kids stuff, more power to you. If I did nothing else in my career, I could have quit very early on and still been happy with myself, because I got letters from kids who said, I didn't like to read until I read your book. And
that's a big deal. Yeah.
Not get better than that, because my 3 kids were pretty avid readers from, right out of the womb practically. And so to find kids who didn't like to read and didn't understand how to read, didn't understand that as they read a novel, they should be seeing a movie in their head. I would tell them that, and you could see that light bulb, go on above their head. What? Oh, that, I get it now. And then they could fully immerse themselves in a book. And, you write those fun books for kids, and that's a skill and an art and a calling, I think.
What was your first favorite book when you were a kid? What got you into reading?
Oh. I loved the Nancy Drew books. And my family, my parents are big readers, and we had weekly trips to the library. I grew up in Colorado Springs, and we had weekly trips to the downtown library, the big one. And there was a limit of how many, you could take out 5 books, I think. And so I would take out 5 books. And one time I wandered up the stairs. Well, no, I snuck up the stairs to the adult section, and I was looking at the big kid books, the adult books. And I got one, and I wish I could remember now what it was, but it was my 5th book in my stack. And I took it back downstairs, and I gave her my library card, and I checked out this book, and she didn't blink. I thought I was going to get hauled off to library jail or something for, reading, punching above my level book-wise, and nobody cared. Nobody blinked an eye. And from then on, I was hooked. I would read everything I could get my hands on. And we had books and magazines and stuff all over the house. So it was not a leap for me to become a reader at all. But those Nancy Drew books, man, oh man, I could not get enough of those.
Yeah, I could definitely see, especially becoming a mystery writer. Nancy Drew is just so powerful of a character and of a read that, not only has she inspired readers, but she's inspired writers. And I remember the first time I found out that Carolyn Keene was yeah, it was a pseudonym, was not like one person. And it was like being hit over the head with something like, what? What are you saying?
Yeah, I could not wrap my brain around that either for the longest time. I still kind of can't, but
I have people like who I've had this conversation with come back to me days later and be like, but really? Like Carolyn, like you can, the internet exists. You can look it up. But, but it is hard to, yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I came to the whole writing thing late. It never, ever, ever occurred to me to be a writer, not as a kid. I got an English degree simply because I liked all those English classes. My degree is really in criminal justice. I like the crime part, and the writing part, the English degree was just extra because I just took all those writing and literature classes. So, but I was a full-grown adult before it occurred to me to be a writer. As a kid, I didn't. That's why I couldn't understand about Carolyn Keene. How can there be more than one person doing the thing that that I didn't even realize a person was doing? So I enjoy that now, but I came to it very late. I really started out writing personal essays like, Irma Becky kind of things. And I got one of those published just out of the blue. And I'll tell you what, that was the best $50 I ever made. That was so validating, because I could do one of these essays during nap time when my kids were little. I could get some grown-up thinking time. And because I was a stay-at-home mom, we owned a business, we still do. And so put the kids down for a nap, and then I would go straight to my computer, my teeny tiny little Mac Classic with the 8-inch screen, pound out those essays. And it was just an outlet, a creative outlet and a sanity saver, perhaps. So when I sold one of those, I was hooked. That was the carrot, and I've been chasing that carrot the whole time. Because there's nothing better than somebody telling you that made me laugh, or that made me think, or that was funny, or that was really interesting, or how I had somebody tell me that one of my mystery writers books, 2 different people, in fact, tell me that reading those books, they read those books in the hospital, dealing with some tragedy with their loved ones, and it got them through it. And that's just such a thrill to be able to give that gift to somebody.
Yeah, I think so too. And especially now with the pandemic, I think, there's, we did an episode early on in the pandemic with Larissa, actually, from Kensington Cozies, just about why cozies are a good read during the pandemic. And I think there's definitely some big merit there to what she was saying. And I'm really excited to see this series grow, because I think it's going to find a lot of fans.
Yeah, I hope so, because, they're fun to write. They're hard to write, don't get me wrong. They're way harder than my mystery writers' mysteries. But it's gratifying, when something's hard to do. It's, it means a little bit more maybe. But it would be exciting. It's always exciting when a book finds an audience, has some success. And I hear you about the cozies. That we talk about that all the time in my book clubs and with my writer friends, my reader friends, how they're just so comforting, because the rules about cozies, there's no violence, there's no on-screen violence, there's no on-screen sex, cursing's to the, kind of limited, amateur sleuth. So it's really you're putting yourself in the place of these surrogates, what would I do kind of thing. And
right.
And they're just, and like you said, they're, the cupcakes, the recipes. It's comfort food, really, as far as I'm concerned. Cozy mysteries are comfort reading. You can kill 1 million people in these books, and it's still comforting for whatever reason.
It's funny, there was a meme going around early on, or maybe it was, I don't even know at what point in the pandemic anymore, because
it all been
there's no time, there's no
Yeah.
frame of reference, but it was something to the effect of, I'm really stressed out by how many unsolved mysteries there are because the little old ladies are stuck at home, quarantining. Instead of sleuthing around and I just thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, all those busybodies are stuck at home.
Yeah, they can't go out sleuthing. So, I mean, I'd say maybe there needs to be like a Zoom cozy, but I think we're all sort of like, we all need an escape from the pandemic. As I interview you on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. Well, there is a question going around about when is it going to be okay? When are people going to want to see anything about the pandemic or in a book? When are you going to have your characters wear a mask? When are you going to have them shelter in place? Those kinds of things. And as far as I'm concerned, perhaps never.
That seems to be a very popular answer, because we've interviewed a bunch of authors, be it cozy, be it thriller, be it anything, and for the most part there's a lot of that, and I think maybe there will be a time when someone wants to tackle it as historical fiction, but I don't know. I think and I hear that a lot about just the other media too, in TV. Are you going to pretend that it never happened? And I think because I think a lot of us want media to help us escape, and we're still sort of going through this. So I can't really imagine wanting to do that, although I could be wrong.
Part of it is that as a writer, you don't want to date your books,
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
And that would absolutely make sure that book is set in 2020.
Yep. Well, that's true, and that's why like as a maybe at some point as a historical fiction, as people go back and they look at other pandemics, you have really great historical fictions about pandemics, but that is a historical fiction,
right.
And when I used to do film and film theory, which was really my major, film is English, one of the things that we talked about was, if you want to make a timeless movie, you don't put a song that's from a specific era in the movie. So like, for instance, like you're watching Goonies, and Goonies has Cyndi Lauper music in it. And I'm not knocking Cyndi Lauper, but you watch that movie, and aside from the fact that everyone has 80s hair and there's the Coreys in it, you hear the song and you're like, oh yeah, this was popular in 1980. And automatically it's dated. However, if you hire, say, John Williams, because as you do, everyone can just hire John Williams to film, to create a score, not film, to write a score for your film, it's going to be timeless. I mean, you can look at the original Star Wars and you can say it's very 80s for other reasons, 70s and 80s for other reasons, but it's not really dated because of the music. And same with the Harry Potter films. So I've never thought of it in that way with books, but that is very true.
Yeah, especially in mysteries, the cell phone thing is really important sometimes.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you have this really intricate, complicated plot, and all of it could just be avoided if they picked up their cell phone. Well, that's boring, They want to put it back in the 80s,
And that brings me to, actually, this is a conversation I have with my husband a lot, because going back to Goonies, we do talk a lot about how Goonies would have ended in the first 20 minutes if everybody had a cell phone and they could just take a picture like, oh, look, the Fratellis, they're here. Oh, I'm sending it to the chief of police. Oh, like that would be the end.
Yeah.
And, like, is there a reward? We saved our town. Yay.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of, I've been finding a lot of books lately, mysteries especially, are set back in the times before cell phones because it does affect everything.
Yeah. Yeah. When you can just make a phone call, big whoop.
Seriously. Yeah. Like, or even like send a picture, post it on social media. Like now everybody knows who the perpetrator is.
Yeah. It's funny though, talking about pandemic books. I do have a pandemic book standalone. It would never be a series, but I do have I thought of it early on, and I still kind of like the idea, but I'm wondering when I'll really feel like I want to write it and that it's the right time to write it. So it's interesting, who knows what's going to happen. I mean, if this is a blip, if we get a vaccine, early next year, whatever, and this all goes away, then this is just a blip. If it becomes bigger, more important, then it's more than a blip. And then we might have to make some decisions about it. But for me, I can't imagine in my funny cozies that it would ever even come up.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to us about them. And I do hope that you will join us again in the future to talk
Anytime
about
you want to.
Subsequent issues of subsequent sequels of any of your stuff. Once again, this was Jessica with Syosset Library Turn the Page podcast, and my guest was
Becky Clark.
And we are going to close this chapter of Turn the Page.
It's time to close this chapter of Turn the Page. Join us for the next episode.